Hi everybody. Glad to have you back. I hope you're having a good day. We're enjoying our weekend. It's a little warm today where we are. It got nice and hot and humid all of a sudden. That's kind of a surprise, but that's what happens in my state of Wisconsin. So in this video, I want to describe what your template is going to look like in the new curriculum. And I want to put a disclaimer in right away. This is the planned look. However, they're still working on layout and design. So there will be possible changes according to what we need as we go forward with this. But I'm sure all of you will be flexible with us as we do that. And at this point, I'm not so worried about you seeing or knowing every piece of the layout because we'll work on that. I just want it to be an easy thing for you to use as a template in your process of writing. So you'll get this information via email, but I am actually going to be explaining pieces of it in this video. Hopefully that will give you a chance to hear it, and then you can look at it and study it. And please, if you have any questions, give me a call or a text or an email, and I'll do my best to respond to that. I will be looking at my computer a lot. I apologize, but we'll see what we can do with this here. So the new templates have gone to one document per lesson. We will not need to give you an overview or an outline. We are combining the information that is in our overview and outline right into the template for you. Anything you need to know specific to that lesson will be in that lesson template, and then the rest of it is yours to create within the parameters that we mention in the template. A couple of things up front I want to mention again. In my first video, I said that in every lesson, the truth about God is the thesis statement. That used to be the Bible points, now the truth about God. Every piece of this lesson needs to point back or explore or present that truth. That is the idea the lesson is about. And we would like to make sure that we do that. I will tell you up front that if I find there's a section that isn't doing that, I may call you back, or I might send you an email and say, please rewrite this section, because we want to work that in as much as possible. That means that Bible stories may not always have every detail, not just because of age-appropriate writing, but also because we may not choose to do the entire Bible story. Obviously, a story like Joseph or Moses, you have to do that anyways. And so we will be using the truth about God to fine-tune what we want to learn in that particular lesson. And the goal is to bring out pieces of these characters' lives or the Bible stories and let them be applied to today. It's not only about Bible literacy, although we are very much concerned about making sure there's Bible literacy. We have heard the feedback. We know this as writers. A lot of people do not have Bible literacy like they used to. So we are going to push that where we can and try our best to help them learn the Bible stories and the Bible passages and the Bible doctrines. But considering that many of our churches have a very short time frame for each lesson, we have to think about how we can do hard-hitting, fast learning that we can build upon. So that's the goal that we're doing in our lessons at this point. As far as the actual template, when you receive it, in front of the lesson template will be a section that I'm going to leave there probably maybe indefinitely, but it is kind of to you as a writer to help you remember when you step into that lesson. Here are the things we need to do. I would ask that before you send the lesson back to me that you would delete that section. It is called God's Word for Life Lesson Template, Steps for Writing a Lesson, and Writer Guidelines. So if you can take those parts out before that, that'd be wonderful. And we are using color coding that we've sometimes used in the past, but you'll see when you first step into the template, purple is for the field editor. You do not have to do anything with it. Teal is for our children's editor. You do not need to do anything with it. Yellow is still being used to give information to our design team, not something you usually have to do. It's usually something that happens at my step of working with the template. Although you could see some yellow in the template because of that. Green is your color. You are a writer who's helping us grow, so you get to use the color of growing. Everything that is green in this template is yours, and you need to fill it in. And when it comes back to me, there ought not to be any green left in it. As we've done in the past, we ask that you would please highlight and type over the green, or if you feel more comfortable highlighting and deleting the green and then typing fresh, that's up to you. It could cause a few formatting issues. If you're not real good at formatting in Word, I would suggest that you just highlight the green and start typing. There's also gray highlights, which are notes from me to you. You'll find that in the gray section, it will be the thoughts that you should try to hit in the Bible lesson or in the life application, or perhaps there's something specific for a lesson that we want to pull out in the memory verse section. There will be a note there. That note is just so you know what we're thinking, where I'm going when I'm trying to edit, and how I'm trying to tie the entire quarter together. Once you understand that note and you have completed that portion, you can delete the gray. It does not need to stay in the template. The other color that isn't in there but that you can use is if you have a note that I need to hear, I need to know, some of you do this already, please highlight it in red, and that way I can make sure I see it and address the situation. I appreciate when that's done. Several of you have done that in the past, and even though I may not read that for a couple weeks after you submit it, or maybe even weeks after you've written it, depending on how long it is that you have the template in your side, those notes are really important, and they help us when we're going forward. If there's something specific you need to tell me about where you're thinking, or if you aren't sure if it'll fit and you've got two options and you want to tell me something like that, that'd be great. Those are specific notes to that lesson. If you have a question, you don't have to do it that way. Just give me a call or send me an email or a text and say, I really need to ask you about this before I go further. We'll work on it. So that's the color coding. It's in there. You don't have to remember what I just said. I'm just giving you that option to know what I just said. We're going to ask you to always make sure you read the Bible text before you start writing, because we want to be biblically accurate every time we can. And we're all human, so we can make simple mistakes, but the mistakes will compound if we haven't read afresh and have it new in our hearts and minds what the Word is saying. Also, I want to reiterate here that in the Bible, the life application, you're trying to give a takeaway to the student, that what they learned in the Bible lesson, what they learned when they were presented with the truth about God, they are now taking that and applying it to themselves. So that's an important piece. And you'll see in our template, the life application gets affected or used more when we get to the second half of the lesson. The truth about God kind of shows up all over in the lesson like it ought to, but the life application often is not even introduced or talked about until we get through the Bible lesson. That being said, you will notice when you take a look at your template that you don't have to fill every part of it in, but we have everything there for you. And the reason we want to do that is so that you can know what the entire lesson is trying to create. And also that will give you a flow that we used to have in outlines and overviews that we no longer are doing with you. So you may see notes already in there. You are no longer doing the teacher devotion. I am doing that. If I have the chance, I will try to fill it in before you get the template, because that will be helpful to you. If I don't, well, you'll just know I'm doing it. But there might be other pieces that are plugged in somewhere along the way. So jumping in to our template here. The first page is still the page it's always been. It's the title page, and on that page I'm going to just mention, so this will say it's level 3, which when it actually gets to production and is printed, it will not be called level 3. It will actually have a terminology that goes with the age level / maturity level, and they're still working on that. Right now they're just talking about calling it grades 1 and 2. We'll see how that comes out. I am not sure if that's what they've decided to stick with. You'll notice that there's a series title, and that's going to be the same for every single level, no matter what age is using it. You'll notice that we all are sharing the same exact text, but then once we get past that, all of a sudden it becomes more ours. The part that we've really pushed for as field editors, and I know all of you have agreed with us, is that we need to be able to present Bible at the level we are at. We need age-appropriate titles, age-appropriate verses, age-appropriate text and terminology. Thankfully, that's what we're going to be doing. So we've got a little bit more leeway in that realm. So my lessons and my templates are going to look different than one of the other field editors. We're all following the same patterns, but they may use theirs a little differently. So if you write for more than one of us, you're going to get some different information, and it's up to you to figure out who you're writing for at the moment and how you have to work with that. I'm excited. I think that's good that we're going back to that idea, because I think too often we were trying to make our lessons be something that they really weren't, and I know many of you agree with me on that. A couple things on the title page. It will have the title of my levels lesson. It will have the date spelled out, like written September 5th, 2021, instead of any short version. The series aim is similar to what it used to be when we had a unit aim. It will tell the basics of what's happening in that series. And again, series is the word we're using now rather than unit. And then there will be a series memory verse, a Bible lesson verse. Both of those are going to be much more specific to our level and to the story or lesson we are teaching. And then we've got the truth about God and life application. Our supply list has become nothing but a supply list. There is no instructions on that supply list. And so when you are working, please don't put instructions in there. I will show you on here and talk about it in a minute where you're going to put those instructions. Literally, the supply list will say things like container of, whatever it is that a container of water, a bowl of water, markers, paper, activity papers, and if you were doing special things for your Bible lesson or an object lesson, you put those things in. It will still also say, as you've probably noticed when we get to the actual production, it will say if there is something in the resource packet that they're supposed to do, it'll have the same general layout like we've done in the past. Say, Days of Creation, word cards, and it's under the resource packet and it's a downloadable. So that's not changing too much. Also on the supply list, you'll notice it's color-coded. There's parts that are green, that's yours. The other parts that aren't, those are mine or someone else's. The teacher devotion, you do not need to worry about. It's being handled by one writer who's writing the first part of it and being used across all sections, all levels. And then the part about our students specifically is being written by me. We still have the terminology excite and engage like we did, and apply and act and those, but we have changed one or two, so I'll explain that right now. We still have a core section, but we no longer have an expanded, because instead we've gone to calling it additional activities and options. And those are things that teachers can use if they feel they work better, or if they have a lot more time, or if they like to use our lessons for two different services. Underneath excite and engage, we used to have a welcome, and now we've changed it to the word connect. And you are now part of helping with that, whereas in the past you didn't have to be. You're going to see on your template that every time you have to put something in there, there is the words preparation, instruction, application. Remember I said we have no more boldface? So there had to be a way that we could show the teachers what they're doing versus what they're saying. And also, because we're not doing the prep information on the supply page, we had to bring that in also. So you'll notice that we're doing bullet points under preparation and instruction. Preparation is literally you are telling the teacher what they need to do ahead of time. Like cut out the days of creation visuals, one per student. Place these items in a basket and put it on a table. Perhaps you're doing a game. Mark a throwing line and place the basket or the blocks 15 feet away. That's too far, 5 feet away, whatever. 15 feet, that'd be a huge classroom. It'd be a lot of fun. And then the application is where you will actually write something that the teacher is to say. Now, if this doesn't work real well for you at the beginning, that's okay. I can work with that for you, okay? But at least it'll give you an idea of how it's going to be brought out in the future and what it's going to look like in final print. So do your best with that. If you got questions, please let me know. Don't let it stifle your creativity. If you just need to write and then we figure it out from there, I'm good with that. I'm just giving you what it's going to look like on that template. So you have to do something to connect. We want a one quick hitter idea that's a sensory type thing to start class off. That's it. Doesn't have to be anything big. And then we have brought in, I mentioned this, we brought in a video segment. You are not the one having to come up with a video segment. However, if you think of something that fits what you're doing with your class and you want to suggest it, please do, because we will offer this video segment every single time. And my first instructional video that I sent you, that one I told you it might be something like we're talking about Jesus being the Good Shepherd. So we have a 1-minute video clip on how shepherds take care of sheep, something of that sort. Right after that, we have what we call the opener. That used to be our opening activity. It is not anymore. Again, you're going to do a real fast something that says where we're headed. Point these students to the right thinking pattern. Perhaps it's a quick question that makes them think, or a fast, fun activity moment. You ask somebody to try standing on one leg for 5 minutes and see if they can do it. Yeah, just some interesting, quick thing to get their attention because you're headed in a direction and you want to focus them that way. It probably won't have much for supplies there. It's probably more of a do thing or a talk thing. Here's where the big change happens right after this. In this curriculum, we are trying to offer several options because we have such a diverse grouping of people that use this curriculum. So early on, we talked about how we could address the ideas. We got small classes, we got big classes, we got homeschoolers, we've got church kids, unchurched kids, bus kids that don't know anything about church. We've got churches that have, kids power hour style, and we've got churches that it's just one teacher sitting across the table from 2 or 3 kids. We have all these different situations, and then we bring in the fact that we have churches across the United States. So in one demographic it's this, in another demographic it's that. We have churches that are multicultural. We have churches that are only one kind of culture. We've got so much to try to address. And so here's what we did. We decided to offer a lot of different options, but we also decided to split the track of our lessons. And this is going to show up twice in a lesson. The first time it's going to show up is right here, right after the opener. In your template, I am calling this, another editor might do something slightly different. I am calling this Path 1 or Path 2. That word will not be in the final teacher manual. That's for you and me to remember what we're doing. Path 1 is for younger, less mature, less experienced students, or maybe they're students that don't have as much development in their education. So in our level 3, that would be like 5 and 6 year olds. Children who are just learning to read, children that do not perhaps understand how to use a Bible at all yet. That path, that activity or thing happening in that path will be geared towards that grouping of people. Path 2 is geared towards the opposite. It will be geared towards students who are more mature, a little bit older. In my level, that would be 7 and 8 year olds. Students that have more development, maybe they can read pretty good now. students who want to be challenged. So our homeschoolers and our Bible quizzers who already know if you've got a class of all Bible quizzers, you need something to challenge them because they know their verses and they know the word. These two paths are going to be a little challenging for you because instead of one activity to open up with, you're going to now move into two activities. So you had a quick thing as an opener just to get their attention, and now you're going to say, what would I do with the 5 and 6 year olds, the younger ones, the less mature, the ones who don't have as much reading, the ones that don't have as much Bible literacy? What could I do to bring to them this activity? And secondly, what could I do to handle the older group, the 6 and 7 year olds, the more mature? So basically, what you're doing under the opener is making three different things. A quick hitting, catch your attention activity, and then an actual activity that you do. It could be something like a game. It could be something like a small object lesson. It could be, any kind of movement or engagement with the students. And you're going to make 2 of those, younger, older, or more mature, less mature, whatever way it helps. This is all, the parameters are in the template for you to follow. But I'm letting you know you're going to be doing 2 of these. And they both need to end with the same thought pattern, and that is pointing back to the truth about God. However, they do not need to be anything similar. They could be, if that worked, but we're trying to give these options. So you may have, for the younger ones, you may have a game. You'll see in my sample example that I send you, you'll see that one time that I did this, the younger ones, the path that was for that group was a nature walk, whereas the other path was something more activity related. You get to be very creative in this area, and you'll have to think it through. It took a little of work, but once you get into the mode, it's not as hard as you do. If it helps, think as if you were doing completely different lessons for 2 different levels at that point. It might be more helpful. That not only happens at the opener, it also happens the same exact way at the life application. So in the opener, you're working with the truth about God through these activities, and in the life application, you're working with the life application phrase. And you'll do it again. You'll have path 1, you'll have path 2, because you're trying to create options for these teachers to go with. Ideally, we would expect a teacher would go, the things in this path, they fit me better. And they won't call them paths. They'll just see that it's a nature hike and a something else. And I'll probably do both of those because that's my kids. Or maybe they'll say, well, in this other one, these more challenging things, those are my kids, I'll probably do them. But we're not telling them they have to do that. If they find that in the opener, the first one that's for the younger kids is better for them, and in the life application, the second side, the side that is more challenging works for them, mix and match. It's up to them. That's the goal of this. With that, I'm going to cut this video because I don't want to throw too much at you at one time. We're finishing with the opener and talking about the differences with that. When I come back to the next video, we'll dive into the Bible lesson. Have a great day.